All right, you are tuned into MMA Canada and very excited to be speaking to an individual who has quite the intriguing fight set for BFL 88, which goes down on August the 27th. And we've got that lightweight championship involved in this clash with Lucas Corbage and my guest today on MMA Canada, Radley Da Silva. How are you doing today, Radley?
Good, man. Just getting the last weight off and gonna be really excited to get in there on Thursday.
Yeah, and how's it feeling, I guess, competing more so at lightweight nowadays? Like I'm seeing some of the social media posts kind of touting your prior championship resume more so specifically at featherweight, but it seems like, being at lightweight has really paid dividends as of late. Like what's that, I guess, transition process kind of been like for you?
Yeah, lightweight's definitely a little bit better, but like no weight cut is fun. And just knowing like my regular weight and all that stuff. And I'm definitely like a UFC lightweight like size, like seeing what guys get up to after their weigh in and what they walk around at outside of fighting. I'm pretty certain I'm like UFC level, UFC lightweight size. And featherweight, I've never had a problem making it to featherweight, but I think eventually I'm probably going to move up to lightweight. I've had my last fight was at like 150, and the fight before that was 150. So I already know that I could make lightweight no problem, but it's just it's not fun still at the end of the day. Like, I still have to cut a bit of weight, and yeah, we're gonna make the weight no problem, but it's still no weight cuts fun.
And I mean, you have to think a win here would, pay dividends because you would cement yourself as one of only a few two division champions in BFL history. But I mean, it would be a 10 fight win streak as well and everything like that. So I feel like it could really put you in a great position, especially being that one of your fights within that win streak would have been on Dana White's contender series. So yeah, I mean, get your ideal outcome here, get in that kind of like rarefied BFL air. I would think that you would have, an abundance of opportunities after that, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about how you perform, right? Like I'm starting to realize more and more, like it's all about the result is good, but at the end of the day, it's how you get that result, and it's like it's an entertainment sport at the end of the day, right? As much as like for I'm sure my friends and family, it's all good to get my hand raised, but there's other people out there that pay to watch the sport and they want to see something exciting, something fun, and luckily for me, I don't have to try too hard to do that because my style's already natural like that. For me, something unnatural would be to have a boring fight, and that's what happened, unfortunately, on the Contender Series. So, for me, all I got to do is worry about is making it in there in shape, and just doing what I do best, and the rest kind of follows itself. So, definitely, it's good to get the win, and all that. What you said is true about being on a 10 fight win streak and being a double champion, all that. But I think for me personally is having a performance that I'm proud of is more important than anything. And getting my hand raised, it's inevitable. I will be 10-1 by the end of that night, August 27th. But I want to be proud of my performance as well.
And it's curious because you specifically mentioned that George Mango's performance as one that you didn't particularly find exciting, or at least relative to like the kind of performances you feel like you generally put on. Like, I guess because it's been like a bit over a year since that fight transpired, I would think you'd have a certain amount of time to kind of reflect on that. Like, what was it about that particular fight that I guess resulted in you not generating the kind of performance you were hoping to? Like, was it something your opponent was kind of bringing to the table and thwarting? Was it more of like a mental kind of piece for you? Like, I guess how would you assess like why that performance didn't go off the way you wanted it to?
Um, I mean, I already assessed it before I even made it backstage. Like the moment I got my hand raised, I was pissed off about the whole thing because it felt like you just woke up from a bad dream. Like you have your game plan that you worked on throughout camp, and then you get in there and your like lizard mind just takes over. You basically just let go. And I think what happened was my game plan was to strike, and then all of a sudden he tried to wrestle me, and my lizard brain just said, "Oh, this is the easiest path to victory," and just took over and just went right to that and just did that. And I think a lot of had a bit riding on it too. I had like a really big film job that I had lined up, and I had to fly out for the same week of that contenders fight. So on Saturday, like I had to fight on Tuesday. On Saturday, I had to fly out for a big job in film, and I virtually could not get hurt, or else it would ruin the whole job that I had signed up for, and it was a big job. So I had to take it, and because as you know, before you're in the UFC, it doesn't quite pay the bills. So I had a really big film job that I had to worry about, and I guess maybe that played something in the back of my mind where it's like I know I can't take any damage right now, and it's weird because during it, obviously you don't think about that stuff, but it's like subconscious things maybe that kind of like when you're already in a state of like, you kind of let your instincts take over. I guess the subconscious also like has a big factor in that. So it was weird because yeah, my game plan was to go out there and strike, and then the moment he started trying to wrestle me, I think instantly my body just said, "This is the easiest path," and it just did it. Like there was no point in time where I was thinking in the fight, "Okay, let me get a takedown. Okay, let me hold him." I was just going out there, and whatever my body was doing naturally is what it did. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I already assessed it before I even went to the backstage. I was really pissed off about that performance, and definitely not the way I like to, present myself nowadays in my career. Maybe earlier in the career when you're just getting your feet wet and getting wins under your belt, it's okay getting wins over high level people like that. But now I think I'm experienced enough. 10 fights in my career. I want to showcase what I can do each time.
I mean, it's interesting because, like, in a way, that's, I would say, like a positive takeaway in a certain regard, just insofar as like that muscle memory piece, like locking you into, I guess, the most effective like modality for, securing victory. But I guess I understand what you're saying at the same time. Like the sport very much does get perceived and kind of treated as like a very entertainment driven kind of thing. But also, like you were saying earlier on, like the general way you get out there and perform, it usually generates those, hugely exciting performances and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting. I guess like one of the obvious things that I would kind of think of in what you were talking about there, and maybe there's like still some production element, maybe there's like an NDA kind of piece involved. Like what film project were you working on around that time?
It was just a TV show. It's out now, but
Oh,
uh, yeah, it was on. It's a TV show. It's called Interview with a Vampire.
okay.
Yeah, it's out now. It's like it was great. I'm like so grateful for the opportunity. I wouldn't have done it any differently if I could have. I was lucky enough, chosen to work on there, and I wouldn't have done it any different, and I'm grateful to even get the opportunity. And the performance was on me. I'm just laying out why maybe subconsciously something could have prevented me from taking the extra risks, but never at one moment, like leading into that, was I thinking, "Oh, I gotta not get injured," or I gotta not go all out. It's just I think you know what I'm saying when you go out there and you let your instincts take over, the subconscious is things that also lay into those instincts, right? Because if you think of something enough, maybe it does take over when you're not like consciously thinking, and it's just the instinct, right?
Yeah, for sure. And it must have felt good just getting back to it and getting back to, I guess, generating the kind of performances you seem to, want to be doing, as evidenced by that, first round finish at BFL 87 in May. And I guess with even in like the broader story of your career, I mean, not quite the same amount of cancellations, but I'd seen you had some cancellations circa February and April of this year. So just like the entire journey leading up until that last fight, I would feel like there would be like a certain amount of like relief in a way, like at least just insofar as like having another kind of like more recent performance to kind of reference with it and etc.
Yeah, I was like scheduled to fight 1 month after, or like a month and a half after the contenders fight. I got a little injured because that contenders fight, I was in camp for like 4 or 5 months. It was like way too long. So when I tried to go right back into camp after that one, I ended up injuring myself. So I had to pull out, and then I scheduled something for January, and I had opponent had like visa issues, so I that one didn't work, and I tried to get on a bunch of cards in Canada and the States, and none of them worked out. So I ended up just waiting for the next BFL one, and luckily everything worked out, and I think it worked out for the best because I was able to, improve more on my game and focus on, finishing and making that part of my instinct of like, that being in those positions that, are a little more patient like the ground game and stuff like that, and being able to, inflict more damage and all that stuff, just working on things that I could have improved on the fight beforehand. So yeah, it worked out for me, and I think the performance showed, and now I'm just happy to be able to get into the flow of like fighting a few times a year again, and being as active as I can, because we only have a finite amount of time in this sport. So I think it's best to make hay while however that saying goes.
Yeah, no, I hear you for sure. And I feel like being on a platform like BFL would really benefit that. And I felt like that kind of reference piece about some of the earlier bout cancellations you had. I mean, I would feel like large in part those same kind of issues are maybe going to affect you a bit less. Like it's one of those weird things where like when you have the pedigree you do so early on in your career, it makes it hard for some of those guys more on that prospect tier to kind of lock into these fights. And that's probably like the teams of these respective fighters kind of guiding that kind of thought process along a little bit. But you're kind of at a point now where you're like fighting at a tier where, the fights are going to happen by virtue of you both need that kind of quality win to get to the next level. So just all those factors considered, I would think that you could, have a very strong strength of schedule going forward. And it seems like that's what you're looking to do.
Actually, for this fight specifically, I was very lucky to even get this fight. I was supposed to fight. I was looking for a fight after my last one, like right away. So we were looking for opponents since like the very start of June, and we couldn't find anyone like for months. So we were like messaging all throughout Tapology, everybody under the sun. We had people from Europe, from Brazil, Mexico, United States. Like, I mean, we messaged everybody, and literally nobody would take it. Like they would just be like, "Oh, well, they're interested," because we would say we did obviously get offered like, "Hey, we have a Fight Pass show and a title fight," and obviously everyone would say they're interested, and then they're like, "Oh, who's the opponent?" And then they'd be like, "Oh, Radley Da Silva," and then they would just be either no response or just like, "Oh, we unfortunately we can't take it," or whatever the case. But I was training nonetheless for mid July, early August, and I was in camp. I went to California for a little bit, trained with DC's team a little bit to start the camp off, and then finished it off here in Canada. But I didn't have an opponent until 2 weeks ago, and luckily the main event for the BFL fell through. Jeremy Kennedy was supposed to be fighting in the main event, and he had to take another fight in Abu Dhabi like a month later, so he had to step down. And I was ready the whole time. If someone had to step down from that card, I was ready to step in. So it worked out exactly the way it should have, and exactly the way we're kind of like thinking it could. And luckily, I stayed in camp and I stayed ready, and now I have a fight main event and exactly what I need.
And I'd be curious to get a certain level of insight into that work you had with DC's team out in California. I would think that that would level up your already impressive game that much more.
I mean, I would have liked to spend more time, but it just getting to work with guys from other places that like people come from around the world to work with DC. So, getting to work with guys from different parts of the world, and just, UFC guys, just seeing the level that like they work at and how many people are dedicated down there, it is definitely, eye opening. The way it is here, like there's definitely guys like who have the same skill level or can match the skill level, but there's not as many people that are dedicated as there is in one place that they have there in Gilroy with these teams. So it's definitely refreshing to see so many people so dedicated to their craft there and taking it very seriously. So it really motivates you, and gave me that extra push to start a good camp here when I came back.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like, who are some of the people that you've gotten in like direct work with there? Like, are there certain like high level lightweights and whatnot that you like really honed those skills? And I know you were saying it was sort of like a more abridged kind of timeline there than you would have liked, but like, were there certain like notable names that were kind of honing
Yeah,
those
just
skills with you?
just prospects. A few like regional champs from and down in the States, like A1 Combat and like
Mhm.
Fury. Like just top prospects from all those shows in the States there, and a couple UFC like welterweights, and it was good. It was just good work. Like there's a lot of guys there, and everyone was super welcoming, and like the gym down there, so much hospitality. Like, like those guys were beyond like accommodating to me. So like I'm so grateful for that opportunity, and I definitely want to go back.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of going back to certain endeavors, like more of like an endeavor than a location in this context, but we had a previous conversation talking about some of like that motion capture work you did for the EA Sports video game. It looked like you were maybe getting up to a little bit more of that recently. Like I'm pretty sure I saw you post like an Instagram story about that. Are we doing some more motion capture work for an upcoming UFC game here? Is that kind of something you're also involving yourself in?
No, I've been like part of the team for like a long while now. Like we've been working, I don't even know how many years now, but yeah, it's like, they're here in Vancouver. Luckily for me, I have the skill set I'm a fighter, but I also work in the film industry. So it just kind of goes together perfectly. And like, I know some of the people there on the team, and I was lucky enough for them to bring me on. And it's worked really well, the combination. And yeah, just grateful and to still be part of that team. And we're still, yeah, still doing good things.
No, I love that. And I wasn't even necessarily planning to talk about this, but you talk about that combat sports industry and like film kind of intersecting. That seemed to be like a big thing when they were filming The Smashing Machine. Like I felt like I talked to so many like Western Canadian fighters that took part in that film. And it just seemed like a cool combination of those type of factors, like high level fighting acumen and the cinematic kind of piece and stuff like that, and just like a real heavyweight roster in like the global combat sports scene, like guys like Alexander Usyk and Ryan Bader involved. Just yeah, that kind of came to mind when you were talking about that, I guess, combination of the two things, and I guess specifically kind of where you're located at too, in a sense.
Yeah, no, that movie was pretty awesome too. Yeah, seeing like I had like my family members on there, like a bunch of the local like legends are on there. Like, yeah, it was a pretty pretty like amazing experience for the local scene here in Vancouver. And like, yeah, I was lucky enough to get a small role on there. And it's weird because I had the smallest little role, but like people come up to me sometimes like, "Hey, were you on Smash Machine?" I'm like, "How the heck do you even know?" Like, so people pay attention to stuff. And yeah, I was definitely like, one for the history books for the city. And like we're really blessed that The Rock chose the city, or the production team chose the city, because like, yeah, well, that'll be forever cemented in MMA history there.
And it's cool. Like, I guess I'm curious to get some, I guess, perception as to like what your goals within the film industry are. Like, is it a lot of like pouring into like your martial arts know-how and using it in more of like an action scene kind of context? Like, you'd maybe want to carve out sort of an like a legacy or a brand kind of image and that kind of regard. Are you maybe interested in taking on some more like dialogue heavy kind of roles in a sense and really like branching out in that kind of regard? Like obviously fighting is the paramount thing you're focused on and stuff like that, but yeah, just kind of curious to hear your visions for I guess that particular piece of your life.
Yeah, I mean, like I've been in the film industry, like, in and out since I was a kid, like doing commercials and all that stuff. And it's just part of the lifestyle of being a martial artist here in the city. Like I'm a full-time martial artist, and when you specialize in something to the level, like they may need that in the film industry. And I was lucky enough to be able to establish myself a bit in there while focusing full-time on fighting. And yeah, maybe when I have a little less fighting to do and stuff, and a little less training, I could go more all in with the film and stuff. And definitely, mixing in the acting and the action fighting and all that. And like I've been doing capoeira since I was born, so it gives a lot of like extra stuff. Not because it's one thing to be a fighter, it's one thing to also have the body control, the aerial control, the control not to hit somebody, because at the end of the day it is film fighting, right? You don't want to hurt somebody. So a lot of people think, oh, if you're a fighter you can translate into stunts easily. It's not. You gotta know how to control yourself, control your punches. And luckily I was born into capoeira, which is the perfect martial art to be to know how to control your stuff. So yeah, so for the future, definitely, I would love to get into more speaking roles. I've done like, some minimal stuff and some minimal acting stuff too. So it's just a good thing to have, because it's not like I'm going too far out of my realm to learn something completely different from what I'm already doing day to day, which is keeping in shape, keeping sharp, and having martial arts skill sets anyway. So just and being on camera, being in front of lights, being in front of crowds and stuff, and being able to perform at the highest level, it all ties in together.
Yeah, no, for sure. There's definitely connectivity between all these things. And it's just really cool to see because, I mean, this is obviously you authoring your individual story, but there's so much of that lineage piece to it, just like your family bringing like capoeira to Canada in many ways. And I guess how it kind of serves like dual masters. Like obviously it, benefits the, control of your body piece that you were talking about in the context of the film work, but also generating exciting performances within more of like a shoot fighting competitive context, to use that language. So yeah, it definitely serves a few masters there and everything like that for sure.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's one of the best spaces I found because when I started doing wrestling, jujitsu, and all those stuff, I had really good body control, and it translated really well. Like I excelled in those sports because I was able to control my body so well. And yeah, it's one of the better bases, and a lot of champions from Brazil started with capoeira. So yeah, it's definitely underappreciated in the mixed martial arts realm for sure.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much like combative sports utility that that discipline can provide for sure. So definitely underrated for sure, but just very cool to see some of the different strides you've made. Like I guess the thing I'm referencing in like the last few weeks is I saw you signed with the Iridium team. That seems like a big career move in terms of like what you're looking to build up towards and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in contact with them for years. It's just, in a way, like I guess I don't know if I was taking it maybe serious enough or what it was, or maybe I didn't feel like I needed it. But like, you definitely need someone to vouch for you in those rooms, and people who get to talk to the brass like very often. As many people know, they have like one of the biggest rosters in the UFC. So for me, it was definitely a no-brainer because they already manage like most of my best friends here in the city and basically all the fighters in the city. So they already have a good rapport with all the fighters here. And like, I got to hang out with them during the UFC Winnipeg event while I was cornering my teammate Jamie, and yeah, they were like really good guys, down to earth, and hit it off with them pretty well. Like it's also one of those things where if you don't really know someone, it's kind of worrisome to like hand your career off to them without really getting to know them, right? So I think after that Winnipeg event, we got to hang out a bit and see how down to earth and how much they care about their fighters, and it was easy from that point.
Yeah, it's good to have people like advocating for you or like doing something that could be akin to like signal boosting or just getting attention on what you're doing. Like I feel like Michael Chiesa does that to a certain extent. I mean, obviously he's doing like the BFL commentary and that's kind of part of his like broadcast kind of duties in a sense. But I feel like someone like that who just had such a big like UFC run and stuff like that, and seems like they have like ties to the promotion in a certain regard vis-a-vis some of like the analyst work done there as well. Just yeah, I mean, kind of like another piece that kind of underscores that idea of like it's good to have that, I guess, advocacy kind of dynamic, or yeah, someone in your corner in that kind of sense.
Yeah, it's definitely like who you know, who vouches for you, right? It's in almost all businesses, film and fighting, it's all about reputation and people who trust you, who already have the reputation to kind of give you that push forward in almost any endeavor, I think, in jobs and everything. So it works out very similarly here in the martial arts world as well.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, I guess just talking about the, specific next challenge you have in front of you, because you were mentioning like the contextual piece of how he was supposed to fight Jeremy Kennedy initially, but then that kind of fell by the wayside. But just curious to, I guess, get some more in-depth intel from you in terms of what you've seen from your opponent, Lucas Corbage here, because their last fight, coming off of a first round finish, but a resume with, certain names like Kenny Cross on there and stuff like that. So definitely a well-traveled individual to a certain extent, multiple submission finishes on their ledger. Like I guess from what you've seen from Corbage, like what are your thoughts on some of their better skills and just what they bring to the table here as an opponent?
Yeah, it's a very, very good jiu-jitsu guy, good power in his hands and all that, and very traveled and experienced. Yeah, he's kind of got, I was saying in the press conference, kind of like reminds me a little bit of Diego Lopez. Not as technical a boxer, but still has the jiu-jitsu and the power in his hands to like get it done on the feet or on the ground. And yeah, just for me it personally is just it's the guy that the only guy that would really take it. And yeah, I didn't like necessarily handpick him or anything, but like it's just the guy who was willing to take it at the time because he was already coming here to fight Jeremy, so it only made sense. But yeah, he's an experienced dude, and I think for me, it's a really tough challenge and one that I need in my career. It's like the perfect challenge at the perfect time. It's a challenge that's not too easy and a challenge that's not like way out of my realm. So I think it's the perfect challenge at the right time in my career, and yeah, I expect to be able to implement my game plan and my physicality, my athleticism, and my cardio, as well as my kickboxing and wrestling. So I think stylistically, I match up great. Just it's basically kickboxing versus boxing on the feet and wrestling versus jiu-jitsu on the ground. Except the fact that I've been grappling jiu-jitsu for 22 years, so it kind of evens out a little bit in that sense. It's just I feel like the wrestling is also a bit different because I was able to get that wrestling base throughout high school, and I've shown that when I go to take someone down in a fight, I'm usually very successful. And just the style of kickboxing versus boxing or wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, I feel like I'd rather be the wrestler in that sense because I can get you down or I can stop you from taking me down. And when we get to the ground, I just focus on anti-jiu-jitsu and can work ground and pound. So in an MMA sense, having wrestling does usually lead to more success statistically. And then on the feet, kickboxing is more diverse than just boxing. So it just kind of works out stylistically for me. And then on top of having the cardio and the physical attributes with my athleticism and speed, I think it works out to a good matchup for me.
Yeah, I feel like that's such like a, in a way, almost like underrated part of your game in a certain regard. Like I feel like if people just look at what you're doing in like a highlight reel kind of context, they'd probably just, have the superficial idea of like, oh, I just got to take this guy down. I don't want to get blasted by a, spinning wheel kick and end up on like an end of the year highlight reel kind of vibe. But like you said, I mean, like several decades now of like putting in that dutiful work to the grappling. And I mean, I feel like that already gives you that ability to, I guess, just dictate where the fight goes so that you can use it to keep it in the striking realm, sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of my opponents that I've fought recently, I feel like I can dictate where I want to keep it because they have a certain style where it's like, okay, it's best here or it's best there. But this one, I think he's well-rounded on the ground and on the feet. So it just goes more to styles, like archetypes of fighters, where it's like, he's got the boxing, jiu-jitsu archetype, and I got the kickboxing, wrestling archetype. So it kind of goes more onto that. And then obviously you add in the physical attributes, the cardio, the age, the speed, like all those things. So if you add it all together and kind of, I guess like run it through an AI computer, I should win. A good amount of the times if we were to fight 10 times, just stylistically speaking, and that it all sounds fancy and all that stuff, but I know MMA is not a game where everything makes sense on paper and then plays out the way it does, right? So I know for a fact that anything can happen in a fight. If I lose to the better guy, that to me that's it's no problem. As long as I know I did everything I could in the training camp leading into the fight, and I don't beat myself. That's all that matters. As long as I'm in there and giving my full performance, I would never be ashamed to lose to a guy who just was better than me on the night. To me personally, so I just go in there, free, and I find my flow state, and I let my instincts take over, and whatever happens, happens. But I know at the end of the day, with every fiber in my body, I will leave August 27th with my hand raised and that lightweight title.
And I was noticing this in doing some of my like backgrounding kind of like research piece since the last time we spoke and stuff like that. It was a pretty wild statistic posted by the BFL account talking about how your last 8 opponents, and this would be in the context of getting your ideal outcome in a couple days from now, but you would ultimately have beat a crop of opponents that have a combined winning streak of 40-0 heading into a fight with you. So I mean, just what do you think when you hear something like that? I mean, I feel like that speaks volumes, like a 40-0 winning streak across your last 8 opponents combined. I think that speaks to a certain quality of competition you're facing here, at the very least.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't something I was like chasing, and then after the contender series fight, I realized I'm like, wait a second, everyone I'm fighting is on a win of some kind or a streak of some kind. Like I fought so many undefeated guys, so many guys coming off highlight reel knockouts or finishes. I've never fought someone. Well, I guess the stat already said that I've never fought someone coming off a loss. and most of the guys I fought, they're either undefeated or on a win streak of some sort or coming off a really good win in their career. And that means I'm fighting guys at their most confident. I'm fighting guys who are, also looking to take that next step in their career and feel like they can because they just put on a great performance and I'm, taking that away from them. So it just shows that, yeah, there's layers to the achievements that I'm making here in the regional scene. I'm not just beating bums up. I'm trying to find guys that are on the come up or literally at their best when I face them because I don't want anyone, and personally for myself, I don't want to fight guys who I know that they're not going to help me in my career get anywhere. Like if I make it to the UFC and then I fight a few guys, lose, and then get kicked out of the UFC, that's not, it's a waste of time for me. When I get to the UFC, I want to make sure I'm ready to make a run for the title and make a run for the rankings. So I think that fighting that quality level of opponent is only, helping for me to get those goals when I get in the UFC.
Yeah, no, for sure. And is that ultimately like the next thing you're kind of looking towards? Like, obviously, this is in a context of, immediately looking at this fight. And like we're talking about chance to become a two division BFL champion, and you want to give your opponent that due kind of respect. But is that ultimately like the thing we're looking to like vault towards like hereafter in a way, like either like a sophomore contender series opportunity or maybe even a spot on one of these UFC cards coming up? Like there's that October UFC fight night card coming up. Like, is that like within the scope of like some opportunities you'd be looking to jettison towards with this win here? I mean, presuming you get that outcome, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, this kind of setup with this fight, taking an opponent on 2 weeks' notice, is kind of just the perfect setup because it's just getting me used to what life in the EFC would probably be like, especially if I'm coming in debuting. It's going to be something short notice, is going to be someone I haven't studied or whatever the case is, but just the fact to be able to train and be in shape and be ready to take an opportunity when it presents itself is exactly the type of mindset and the type of life I need to be living if I want to get in there. So I think this plays out perfectly, and it's exactly what I'm going to be ready for after the fight as well. Taking a short notice opportunity, and I think I'm with the right team now that will get my name in the right conversations. And after a good performance here on Thursday, it'll definitely put my name at the top of the list. For like a short notice replacement Edmonton card, and I can fight so many weight classes. I can fight as high as welterweight if I need to. I would even need to cut weight or all that stuff. But I can, yeah, fight 170, 155, 45. Like it doesn't matter to me. I want to get in there and show that I can compete with anybody and world class athlete. Like weight is a thing. There's a reason there's weight classes, but it's not like I'm either fighting a heavyweight or anything like that. So I train with big guys all the time, and I know I could fight between three weight classes if I need to. I would preferably like to fight 45 in the UFC, but I can definitely fight whichever weight class. And yeah, I'll just be ready for any opportunity after this. And all that being said, I got a really tough test in front of me, and that's what I'm focused on right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. You'd almost be like pulling a page out of the Tristan Connolly book, someone you have a lot of like, teammate history with and stuff like that. Like when he fought Michel Pereira in the UFC and was fighting like way out of his weight category. So yeah, it seems like there's a certain gamesmanship that kind of exists within that sort of like gym space and stuff like that. You'd be pulling a bit of a Connolly there a little bit if that were to happen.
Yeah, I was telling my manager the same thing. I was saying, hey, I could fight 170 or whatever it be. And they're like, I don't think it's a good idea. And I'm like, hey, we did it before here. They counted us out. And then he's like, good point. So it's just, yeah, we're ready for whatever. Like, we're training all the time. And I train with guys up to welterweight anyway. So why not, right? I know I can compete with anybody. And back in the days in UFC, you know how it was, right? You had like little dudes fighting big ass heavyweights, and some of them would win. So it's definitely possible, and we've already shown that we can do that here from Canada.
Yeah, no, for sure, man. It's been great getting to talk to you. It's always nice having you on the MMA Canada platform ahead of these different fights. But like I was kind of saying earlier on, you're just a couple days out from the fight. So in that spirit, I really appreciate you, carving out some time here. But I also wanted to give you the floor if maybe you had a final thought you wanted to add as we're kind of wrapping up today, Radley.
No, I just thank you for having me on. Thanks everybody for supporting me. I know it's a short notice fight, and when you're in the regional scene, you're fighting so many times. So for all the people that are always tuning in, supporting me, like messaging, reaching out to me on social media and always like giving me, their best wishes. I appreciate you guys. I appreciate my sponsors, Strike Recovery, Fairfax Partners, Ace Environmental, Cadenwood, I check up with Vancouver, Pinnacle MMA, all the people that, are behind me and make it possible for me to take these short notice opportunities and go in there at my best. So, thanks everybody and thanks for having me on.
It's always getting, it's always great getting you on the program. I feel like you give great insights whenever you come on MMA Canada here. And yeah, this Lucas Corbage fight, definitely an exciting one for August 27th. And yeah, I'm certainly going to be tuned into this lightweight title fight as part of BFL 88. But until then, man, you enjoy the small remainder of fight week and the lead up into this one. I'll be tuned into what's going on. But until then, you have a good rest of your day, man. And yeah, thanks so much.
Hey, brother. Nice talking to you. See you soon.